So recording is started. All right. Welcome to a thing that I'm not exactly sure how to introduce because this is kind of new. Not new in the sense of that I have, never had a podcast video style thing on this channel, but I'm tentatively calling this "Let's Get It Poppin'," but Paupin spelled as in like Pauper. So I was doing this thing called the Champion Deck Series, and it was fine, but I kind of felt like I was pigeonholed into only having conversations about Pauper when someone won a tournament. And for a while there, it's like almost every month, which was kind of like, okay, cool, it's not too much of a load on me, but it's also not really putting out that much extra content, and I've been wanting to do more in the Pauper sphere. I mean, obviously, I'm already doing CEDH stuff as far as podcasting and gameplay goes, so also have been slacking on getting very many games going for Pauper as well. But anyhow, I wanted to kind of open up. I don't want to say that this is another podcast because, well, I already edit this guy's podcast, and then I already edit this guy's podcast, and then I already edit gameplay videos. So I don't know that I want to start a whole other thing, but I have enjoyed I have a playlist on the channel, if you haven't noticed, down below. There are different subcategories of the videos that I make, and I do have one that is a section for Pauper commentary, and I wanted to kind of open it up so that I could talk about whatever the hell I wanted to. Ironically, this does coincide with another tournament winner. Spoilers, that guy. However, we're not going to be doing an interview. Like, yes, I'm going to ask some questions and whatnot, but it's not going to be an interview style. We're not doing a deck tech. I actually had other things that I wanted to talk about that just coincidentally happened to do with the tournament scene of Pauper. So, with that said, I guess, welcome to Let's Get It Poppin'. That sounds so ridiculous, but I like it.
I like the name. That's what matters.
You say that, and it makes me think of. Have you seen Community? Pop.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, I'm your host, Stein. If you haven't figured that out already, I'm joined by sort of kind of co-host guy here right now, Kunx, who's a member of Team Commentary, and we're joined by Stein down below there, who is the most recent competitive Pauper tournament winner. It was the Common Cost 7 that's run by One More Game, Chris, and we all participated. I think I did better than Kunx, but obviously not as good as Stein. Really was trying to get into that top 4 this time. Didn't work out, but that's okay. Before we get started with everything that I want to talk about today, I have a tradition here. If you're on camera with your faces, I insist that you tell me how you got into Magic. I've probably already heard this from both of you, but the people might not have. And unfortunately, Stein's on the circuit, as we were calling it, there for a while. So this is like his third time having to do it. But he's going to do it again for us. And since you are our illustrious guest and winner of the whole thing, you can get us started. So how did you discover Magic? How did you get into it? How did you go from that to tournament winning cool guy?
So growing up, I was one of those kids that did Tiger Scout, Cub Scout, and Boy Scout. And at Boy Scout, you're allowed to become Boy Scout 11. And when you're in Boy Scouts, you're also surrounded by, a lot of times, boys that are older than you. Well, they had Magic cards. We played Magic. I learned Magic in Boy Scouts. And then I went to high school. I started playing Magic. It was all just kitchen table Magic, but it was just like playing Magic in school kind of thing. And then graduated. I had a couple buddies we play a lot of times. Again, just kitchen table Magic. And then both of them moved away in about 2007. So I started playing Magic. And then in 2018, one of them moved back. And Nice. He had been playing plenty of Commander and Standard and all the other formats. And he got me back into it. So I started playing again right before Thrones of Eldraine. And playing a lot of Limited.
That was a good time to come back. Eldraine was pretty busted.
Yeah. Eldraine was a fun set too, though. Got back into then playing, like I said, Limited and Commander. The shop I was going to was near also a military base. So what happens with a lot of soldiers that have a lot of extra money, they spend their money on decks and build crazy decks.
Yeah.
And the problem is when people spend a lot of money, they get salty over things sometimes, and made it less enjoyable.
Right.
So I kind of like stopped playing a lot at the shop itself and started playing more online with on the MTG Marketplace Discord, because they had an arcade where people would play. There was usually about 12 to 15 regular players there. Well, playing a lot of CDH, got a little stale a little bit, so we try other formats out, and we kind of stumbled upon Pauper Commander. And so we started playing a little bit of Pauper Commander, I'd say around spring 2021. I don't really build commander decks anymore. I have my commander decks. I have my one CDH deck that I periodically, maybe once every 2 years, do some updates to, but I really don't spend much money on my CDH decks anymore.
Yeah.
And just kind of focus now on Pauper Commander because it's way more, way cheaper, and I feel like you have a lot more freedom in that because like things aren't like there's so much more possibilities kind of thing versus like CDH. There's only so many viable commanders there versus like
there's a prevailing attitude that this is the best, and if you're not playing it, you're no good. Which my channel tries to break those conceptions, but I just had a comment the other day that somebody said, "Well, there are so many misplays in this game. This is nowhere close to CDH." And I'm like, "Bro, misplays happen," and I put them out there so people can see that it happens and how you can roll it back and all that other stuff. So.
Yeah, that's the whole point of doing the misplays, especially when you're practicing or just like having fun.
Yeah, we're just playing for fun.
You're playing competitive casually. That's honestly the most high level fun you can have, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So then, at some point, you obviously discover Sanctuary, and then I think from there, the rest is kind of history as far as becoming the tournament grinder that you have become.
Yeah, so like I joined the home base, and the home base, the people were boasting about. First, it was the tryhards. I got into the tryhards, and then Sanctuary came up, and so I'm on all the servers at this point.
Yeah, same. So I have to know, how many tournaments did you play Zada in? Well, I guess spoilers, but this is the Zada guy, and he plays Zada all the freaking time. So yeah, that should go without saying. But I know you've played it in a number of tournaments. How many did you play before you finally got this dub?
I think I've been in almost all the sanctuaries at this point, and good portions of the Common Cause. I went to Rags. I got top 8 in Rags, and I also did a local tournament here in Germany. Got top 4 there. So I would say probably 10 or 12 tournaments.
Okay. I know one of the Common Causes you registered Heartfire Hero, which also got another top 4, or got its first top 4.
I think I was top 8 there.
Yeah, that's still not that bad. So again, there's a history of Heartfire Hero being good.
Well, yeah, cool. Again, congratulations on the win. It's definitely a feat. I still haven't done it. I still haven't even cracked top 4 yet. The best I've done is being number 5, looking in. So, and in this last one, I think I was 7th.
Yeah.
But I was really happy to get a dub in the first game on a deck that I had barely tested, and then get a draw subsequently. So I was like, okay, I'm in the runnings. Except for Gator wins 3 games. 3 other dudes win 2 games. I was like, man. But I played in those last couple things, and I got my money's worth, so to speak. I had a really good time. Actually, out of all the tournaments I played in, except for maybe like the first one, it was the most fun. First one just because it was like busting the cherry,
That's always good to hear that. Didn't win, but still had a lot of fun, and that's honestly what matters too.
Yeah, it's funny because my girl was telling me, she was like, "Man, every time you play in one of these tournaments, you just get mad, and then you're just mad for the rest of the day." And I was like, "Well, yeah, because I just keep getting shit on, or people make dumbass decisions, or they eliminate me when I'm like not even the threat." And anyway, we're going to talk about some of that stuff later. First, Kunx has been someone I've interacted with for like a couple years now,
like 2
but
years at this point?
has been on the channel gameplay wise, but hasn't been on the channel with his face. So I am also forcing him to tell us how he got into Magic. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I got into I was introduced to Magic. I think like 2003 when one of my friends in middle school showed me some cards. It was like, "Hey, look at these cards. The art's so much cooler than in Yu-Gi-Oh!" I'm like,
"Yeah, you're making me feel old, dog." 2003, you're in middle school?
Yeah, I was like in 8th grade.
I turned 21 in 2003.
Yeah, 2003 I was 17.
Franklin's a baby.
Yeah, so I actually bought one of the Mirrodin starter decks. It's the green affinity one. I was like, "Oh, this looks pretty cool." But unfortunately, like starter decks back then were just straight.
Yeah.
So I just kind of skipped off of most of Mirrodin block, Kamigawa block, came back during Ravnica. I actually did play during the Guild Pact pre-release, where I distinctly remember someone coaching my opponent and cheating me out of a game when I had a Burning Tree Shaman on board. And then afterwards, they're like, "Oh, I want to trade for Burning Tree Shaman. Sorry that I screwed you over. Here's some extra stuff." I'm like, "Cool."
Cool.
Yeah, and back then, like, my kitchen table deck was just trying to build elves with, like, Biorhythm, because I thought Biorhythm was a really cool card.
I remember buying a copy. I still have a copy of it. I bought a copy of that from an LGS because I was like, ooh, this is a good card. I'm going to put this. I had a mono green deck that was like big stompy shit. And I was just like, but also like, lots of stompy shit. So it was like, oh yeah, I can easily have more creatures than everybody and just win. And then come to find, I got home. The guy didn't tell me shit. Just sold me the card. What an asshole, right? Got home. Oh, it's on the ban list. I was like, what? Damn it.
Yeah. This was again like 2006, 2007. So Commander, I didn't even know was a format yet. I think it was still like around Judges and.
Yeah, I don't think it had gone very mainstream yet at that point.
Yeah, no. Yeah, and then I played until was a Time Spiral block, fell off to focus more on high school and Yu-Gi-Oh. Then didn't really pick it up until the first Innistrad block. And then I bought the event deck. And that was super nice and fun. Stayed until Return to Ravnica, and that's when Red Green Monsters was coming out too. When the first Theros block set came out.
Right.
I was like, man, Burning Tree Shamans Burning Tree Emissary into Burning Tree Emissary. And a whole bunch of Nykthos and make a butt ton of mana. This is really cool. I love it. And that's honestly like my favorite standard deck ever. Just Red Green Monsters. And then during Theros, this fell off again during Khan's block. When Battle for Zendikar came out, I tried to pick up stuff for it because I was traveling. I had a credit card, so I spent way too much money on stuff.
It happens.
I was like, oh, I'll buy all these new fetches because they're dirt cheap, and if I ever play Modern, I have fetches.
That was a smart investment.
Yeah, so here's a not so great investment tip for buying cardboard. Buy lands that you'll need in every Eternal format and just sit on them forever.
Well, fortunately, there was a whole period of time there where like fetch lands were commanding ridiculous prices. I remember I got even just the shocks. I remember I got the OG shock, like the God, I don't even remember. It was one of the Ravnica sets, wasn't it? That they first came out in.
I
want to say
Dissension. Dissension was the first.
So I got a full set. I really wanted those, and my girlfriend was like, "Oh yeah, tax return or whatever. I'll buy you a full set." So I got all 10 or whatever it is. And at that time, I want to say it was like $100 for all 10, maybe a little bit more, which doesn't seem like a lot, but I mean it is a lot. Yeah, I've got plenty of those.
Oh, the foil one. The foil one.
Yeah, nice.
You have the foil Ascension.
Well, and then the same thing with fetches. Like I bought them all when they were, a little bit more money than they are now, and then they reprinted the shit out of them, and now it's like, they're probably still what, $5 a piece or something, maybe 10.
Foil dissensions are worth like $500 to $600.
Oh yeah. No, I don't have those. I just meant like fetches and some of the shocks, like from the old days. Yeah, definitely still command price, but
fetches whenever they're on the cycle. So like the Modern Horizons 3 ones. And Khans and Onslaught ones. Right now they're on the downtick because Modern Horizons 3 just came out and there's a whole bunch of them got printed.
Yeah.
So they're like 10 to 20. But the Zendikar ones are actually going back up because they haven't been printed since MH2.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the way it is. But side note aside, so then how did you end up finding Commander after that?
COVID. Like almost everyone else.
Yeah, I was already very well invested in the format before COVID. I think I got into it in like 2016, 2017.
Yeah, I got into it like around 2020. There was an LGS like literally down the street from my house that I could walk to, that my friend owned, and he just said, "Oh, hey, come over here, play Commander, just wear a mask, hang out where we all know everyone's safe."
That's how I got into just doing it online. It was COVID. It was right before COVID, really, but then like COVID, it was like everybody was looking to play online, and it just became a huge thing. And we just, when we got, I was only out of work for like 3 months, I think. They closed down the place I worked at, and I jammed so many games. It was crazy. But
yeah, and that's actually where I met Gator, because I remember because the whole story was Gator was playing games with his Crackling Drake deck, his Pauper Crackling Drake deck. And everyone was complaining. I was like, "Oh no, you're too strong and high power level." I walk in and was like, "Oh, there's the other CDH guy," and I was just playing Marin, like this upgraded Marin, and I'm like, "This isn't really a CDH deck, but sure." And then Gator and I became friends. tried to get me into Pauper back then, Pauper Commander back then, in like 2021, 2022 era, when everything was like super slow and like
boring.
Yeah, that's like this is
3-hour games.
Yeah,
this is 3-hour games in turn 19 format. I was like, nah, no thanks. I'd rather play faster games.
Yeah, but then once you get bored of the top end, it actually ends up being pretty fun.
Commander Legends 2, Baldur's Gate came out and just made everything a lot faster.
That's when I got into Pauper. Basically, it was right around that time. I had played it before, and it was the same thing. We had like play group, got into the arms race because one of the dudes was like his fucking brother-in-law or something was like, here's a box of old cards, and there was like 6 out of the 10 duels OGs in there near mint. Like, what the fuck? And then he just had
cradles for no reason.
Yeah, he had everything, and the rest of us had nothing. And like I was trying to build Zur with like shocks, and that's it. Didn't even have fetches really, and it was just
Necropluns was still like $50.
Yeah, I didn't even have Necro in the deck. I used it as like a Staxy toolbox deck, and it was kind of half Voltron too, because it was like, oh, I can tutor up this aura and put it on Zur and, you know, make him like a 6/5 because I have 6 cards in hand, and like it was so stupid. I'd also use Phyresis to try and like Tainted Strike people and whatever. Like it was a thing, but like I had to do what I had to do because like this guy had all the best shit. And he was playing Scion of the Ur-Dragon food chain back then and shit, like just weird stuff. And yeah, I digress. But it was the same thing. And then eventually at one point I learned about Pauper Commander and I was like, this would be fun. Like actually use these boxes of commons that I have and that we'll never see play otherwise. And yeah, like same sort of deal.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't really have a connection to most of the commons that I play with. It's just purely a power level thing of just, I'm only ever going to play competitive Pauper Commander. I'll try to play casual, but I don't think I'll ever really have a dedicated deck for it, which is a shame. But
yeah, I have a couple because I tried to make them competitive and they weren't good enough. So I was just like, okay, this is a casual deck now. And but I don't think I'd ever put them together in paper. I just put them on Moxfield.
Yeah, and then so getting back to the story, after meeting Gator is just almost the same exact thing as Stein. Joined Common Connoisseurs, then splintered off to Sanctuary. And then once Puzzle had to drop off from the Common Theory podcast, and Gator was without a host for a while. Rohan and I hopped on.
Month,
yeah, it's like, we'll just join you.
Well, glad to have you. I actually nothing against Puzzle, but I actually enjoy the show better. I think you guys have a really good dynamic.
I think that's what it was. That Gator originally wanted to have 4 hosts, but again, I wasn't really too entrenched into Pauper Commander, even though I was in the voice calls that we have every morning.
Yeah. I have not been able to participate in those either, because they happen while I'm at work.
Or asleep, yeah.
Okay, well, that seems like a comprehensive history from the two of you. Again, glad to have y'all. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of this. So the grand topic here is the tournament experience, like the player experience. I wanted to talk about some etiquette things, sportsmanship, communication, slow play, spite play, judge calls. And this isn't necessarily to like tell anybody what they should be doing or how to do something, or me getting on a soapbox and telling you this is the right way to do something. Nothing like that. And the reason I wanted to bring more than just Stein on here was just to have an extra person that's been in the tournament. We were all in the same tournament, so we could pick and pull from the same sort of combined experience. But then also we've also played in several. I've played in most of the sanctuaries. I've only played in a couple common causes, but yeah, we all have at least a little bit of a CV for tournament play. So I thought it was appropriate.
Other formats, other games.
Right. So I just thought it was a good idea to have people to bounce off of. I was originally trying to get Gator on here too, but he couldn't make it. And then I tried to get Samish on and he couldn't make it either. So we settled for Kunx. But with that said, yeah, there's a lot of things that happened in this tournament and in the last tournament that kind of like rubbed me the wrong way. But then also there were things that happened where I was like, yeah, that's kind of the way it should be. And that's why I wanted to talk about this stuff, because I don't want to specifically say like, oh, you had this thing happen to you and I had this thing happen and this guy said that. I'm not going to call anybody out. We're not trying to shame anyone. It's mostly just, trying to bring attention to some things that we thought were kind of issues. Well, I thought were issues. I'm not going to speak for you guys, but yeah. So let's just start off I'm just going to go in order with what we got here on the show notes, and we'll just touch on the topics and move on when we feel like we've covered it. Slow play. This one is kind of touchy because it's not something that you can really clearly define. It's kind of hit or miss as far as like what it actually is. But usually when you're playing a game, you know, it's turn one. You go, you know, land, maybe take an action, pass, right? And then you go land, take an action, maybe pass. And it goes around. And then the second turn, same shit. Land, do your thing, move on. And I had games where it was like that. It was just bam, 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 bam. We got done in time. Everything was good. Now, I understand in a tournament setting, you're going to take some time to think about your actions and other things. You might have 3 or 4 routes you can go with what's in your hand. And maybe you're worried about this guy over here winning or whatever the case may be. So there are decision points that may take some thought. But generally speaking, well, I don't know. What do you guys think would be like an appropriate amount of time to like be able to just kind of sit and think?
2 minutes. The rulebook says 2 minutes per action.
Perfect. I didn't even know that was in the rules.
The biggest problem is like technically like you have 2 minutes to do actions between game actions. You also have everyone else's turn when you thinking does not require having priority.
That is true.
And I think that and that's just something that people have to learn from moving over from a casual or high power over to competitive, that you can look at your hand whenever you want. Like, sure, we have the rule of your hand has to be on the table, visible at all times, but you can always just like take a little quick peek.
Right.
To just memorize what you have.
You should be setting up your camera where you should be able to still look at your cards without having worried about other people seeing your cards. As far as the face of the cards, you should be able to just look at them and be able to look at the cards. And another thing to add to that about the like slow play though is like knowing your deck helps tremendously with that too. Because if you know what your deck can do, you're not having to think as nearly as much. Like you're quicker through your turns, and you're allowed to. It makes it easier for you to pay attention to what everyone else is doing too, to make a more conscious and time-sensitive decision on things instead of like taking forever about things.
Right.
Because the thing is, we only have 90 minutes for a round, or 80 or 90, but like, so time is a commodity that shouldn't be wasted needlessly, kind of thing.
Where I would say that we can be more lenient is when you know somebody, especially if they just come around and say it, like, I'm new to this format, or this is my first tournament. I can get nerves are going to get you a little bit. You know, your brain's not going to be hidden the same way because you're taking in all this new information or whatever. And we had guys like Miles, for example, from the Jalapeno Poppers, was very open about, I play casually, and this is my first tournament, and I don't really know all of the combo. Like, he literally said at the beginning of one of my games with him, he's like, I don't know the combo pieces and stuff, so if you guys want to let me know that, like, that's a threat, you know, I can try and help with it or whatever. And there was a point where a guy was trying to pass off, like, I don't have nothing, and then he puts down a combo piece, and then he continued to try and pass off, like, I ain't got nothing, and then he put down combo piece number 2, and we're like, red flag, dog. Like, hold up a counterspell. Like, this is bad news, bad news.
Yeah, but that's...
And turns out the guy had it and actually went for it, and then he had the counterspell and stopped it. So...
Yeah, that's as good communication off of Miles. Because
I agree.
Let everyone know that, like, hey, I need help. I have help. Let me contribute to the game.
But there are people that might be shyer and, or whatever the case, and just won't say that, but still have that issue. So, like, they may not know when to do things and whatever. And sometimes that can be misconstrued as spiteful or a bad play or whatever the case is. So, like, we do have to keep in mind that people are human. They are going to make mistakes. And if they are less experienced, they're not going to be as fast to do things. But they also, as new players, need to recognize that if, like Stein said, play your deck a lot. Get reps in before you go to a tournament so you already know what it's doing. Play with other meta decks so you know what the combos are, and, or just do research. I mean, you can look at, the guide or wherever you find your deck list. So you could just search on Moxville for Pauper Commanders and you just look at them, read primers, figure out what things do.
Well, isn't there also like the PDH data or something like that shows like combos for like potential combos with cards too?
I think Commander Spellbook has like the pop.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Yes,
yeah. Spellbook, Commander you could definitely find combos. I mean, even without, I'm sure they have search functionality for just Pauper cards, but I've never done that. I just search for a card that I know is a common, and I'm like, does this combo with anything? And then you can find out, and then you go, well, it only combos with rares, so
Yeah, I'll find the
Yep.
link for you, and it'll be down here below.
Cool. I didn't have any points where I was like really wanting to call a judge for slow play, but I did have a game that went to time, and I kind of felt like towards the end of it, people were slow playing a bit, just trying to get to that draw. And I also felt like I was in position to win that game if it didn't go to draw. So, I mean, I guess there's kind of... I'm not sure if that one got streamed, so I'm not sure if there's receipts for this, and I might be misremembering too, because, I mean, we played a lot of games that day.
It was on stream. I remember watching it.
Okay, it just felt like towards the end, like, everybody was just taking their sweet-ass time doing stuff, and I'm just like, come on, let me win. And then, yeah, no, didn't happen. And then I had another game that almost went to time by like 90 seconds or like 60 seconds. It was like almost there, and the one guy got the win right at the end. And I don't know that that one was really slow play outside of just like there was a lot of decision points throughout the whole game, and everybody was kind of just slogging through it. But did you guys have any experiences where like you wanted to call a judge for slow play or have?
It's really rough and touchy because in the middle of the game, I feel a lot safer calling for slow play because I just need the pace of the game to speed up. But towards the end of the game, and if I'm monitoring the time, that means I know other people care about the time, and we're all kind of pushing for either someone needs to win like soon before the timer runs out, or we're all kind of working towards a draw.
And I brought that up in that one, not the one that went to draw, but the one that almost did. I was looking at the time and I'm like, bro, you guys got like 2 minutes left. If you want to win, you need to push for a win now. And I was already out of that game for sure. Like, the only reason I was kept alive is because I was helping the guy who won win because I was doing symmetrical damage, and he was just like letting me live so I could continue to do damage while I tried to dig myself out of a hole. I didn't see any of my life gain that game either. So it was unfortunate. Like game one, campfire. Stein was there. I was campfire every turn for 2 life every turn. 2 life every turn. It was good. Having the life gain actually made a huge difference for me in that deck. But again, like I brought up like to those guys. I was like, well, unless you guys want to go for a draw, like we could do that. I'll take a second draw. And they were like, no, we're gonna play it out. And I was like, of course we're gonna play it out. I was just making a joke, guys. Calm down.
Yeah, but that's why, like, towards the end of the game, where the timer does matter, I don't want to call a judge for slow play. The slow plays kind of need to help me out because I want the timer to end on my turn, no matter what. Right? Because if it ends on your turn, you have all the time in the world to finish your turn, technically.
Right.
And that's why I kind of want to hear what Stein has to say, because even though we all 3 of us play like manual storm decks, unfortunately, Zada storm turns also historically take forever.
Not with him. So like, not what I've seen. He plays it fast.
Well, that's because I've played.
He does play fast, but I also force him to do it.
Yeah.
In my experience, like the only real experience I've had with like slow plays is like people just get idle chit chat way too much in the game.
I agree with that.
That's and I'll let it go a little bit, but like if the people are doing it constantly, I'm like, hey guys, we're playing a game. Let's keep it focused here. But I never gotten to a point where I wanted to call a judge on idle chit chat where it slowed down game. But like, there's been times I'm like, oh, we need to speed it up. Slow play doesn't bother me too much because like Zada wins so quickly when she's going off, especially since I know the deck and I can go through the storm process of it pretty quickly. But I still end up like a lot of times my storm turns usually end up being like 10 to 25 minutes though, depending on how much I have to like sequence things correctly. When I'm playing games, it's extremely rare that I go to time because my deck is just applying pressure, or if I'm not applying pressure, then someone else is doing things kind of thing. So how my deck is built, I'm not really interacting too much. So like, I'm not slowing down the game.
So I feel like that's a pretty good wraparound on slow play. Yeah, I agree. I've never really wanted to call it, but there were a couple instances there where it was like, it was close, where I was like, man, you guys need to hurry up. But moving on from that, let's talk about spite play. So I can say right out the gate, I'm not going to name the guy, but streams out there. Me and Stein had it in the very first round where essentially lethal was presented to a player. Like, not presented, they were being attacked, did not have a way to block, were dead. Dead on board. No action should be taken, right? And me as a person that has played CDH for a long time, I feel like I understand because of the endless debates and arguments I've had with people over the years. of what could be considered a spite play, what could be considered king making, and all of those sorts of things. And honestly, in my opinion, spite play is, I think, a lot more cut and dry. King making is a little bit harder because there are times where you're put in a position where you literally get to choose who wins, and it's not because you want to, it's not because you created that scenario, it's because that's just where it is. And you're like, I have to stop this guy, but if I stop this guy wins. And if I do nothing, then this guy wins, and then the table's pissed at me either way. So, and that's, you throw your hands up, and that's all you can do about it. But with spite play, it's a little bit easier because it's like, okay, that's just shitty. It always feels shitty, it looks shitty, it sounds shitty, like, it's shitty. So, walks like a duck, talks like a duck, must be a duck. So, in the example I brought up here, we were playing, guys, lethal, on board, he's being attacked. He has no blocks. And then he goes, well, let me look at my hand. And he goes through and he pulls out a Ghastly Demise. And then decides that he's going to use that to kill the guy I think it was the guy who was attacking him.
But it was a 1/1 creature that wasn't attacking him either.
Yeah, he was just going to kill a thing just to kill it because that was the action he could take on his way out. And Stein's immediately like, dude, that doesn't do anything for your win percentage. That doesn't increase your chance. You're literally dead. Why are you doing this? And the guy's like, well, I can do it because XYZ thing. And Stein was just like, okay, whatever, dude. Can we call a judge? And then literally started calling a judge. And then before the judge got there, the guy rolled it back. And he was just like, fine, I don't want to deal with the judge, whatever. Said he didn't cast the spell and just died. And it was like, that's what should have happened in the first place. You should have just been like, hey, I'm dead. Cool. See you guys next round or whatever. The main reason I'm bringing this up is not because of that example in particular. That's just something that happened that was clearly a good example of what a spite play is. But I've actually seen people in tournaments prior, and Stein might have an example he wants to share, where they actually encouraged that behavior. That like, hey, you might be able to increase your win percentage if you take this action on your way out. And it doesn't make any sense to me why you would encourage that behavior, but... did you want to share that example?
I don't want to share exactly the example. It's just I want to elaborate more on it, kind of thing. It's just
sure.
Like
go ahead.
Spite play. Like there's several situations in the spite plays, and like someone doing things on the way out of dying is the easiest one to identify as a spite play. But there's other spite play situations where like someone is just like
one for one, like you killed my thing, I kill your thing, kind of shit. Even though it doesn't help when you're using... I mean, I guess I have another example, but I'll leave that. But yeah, you're using your interaction on this guy because he pissed you off instead of using it on the guy who's going to win the game, kind of stuff.
Or like an example of just like, for instance, someone casting a relic of Progenitus on the field and another player's playing a graveyard deck. So in response to them casting like a relic, they want to just blow up your commander. And that's kind of a spite play myself, I feel like, too. Yeah. Yes, yes.
Yeah, I was like, what are you doing? And he wanted to make a deal with me. I was like, what are you offering me? He's like, well, I won't blow up your commander if you don't use your relic on me. And I was like, there's literally no cards in graveyards, dude. Like, what? I'm like, you're not offering me anything. And he's like, okay, I'm just going to kill your commander then. I was like, okay. And then literally next turn, Steins pops off and draws 50 fucking cards. And I'm like, that would have been a better place for removal. And he's like, oh, I didn't even know what Zada did. I'm like, well, then maybe you shouldn't just do a spite play.
Yeah, but it's like that's a more of a vaguer spite play situation kind of thing. But like it's a harder one to identify as a spite play kind of thing. So
yeah, and that's something that we always touch upon over on Common Theory, that you can use all of your removal to just focus on one player, and then because you ignored someone, expect to die to the person you ignored.
Yeah.
There was a point that was brought up somewhere recently where it was actually while I was in a game, or maybe right after the game, like we had a round had finished and we were talking, and it was brought up that somebody brought something up, and then I made a further point was just sometimes it's better to hold than it is to fire off what you have at that exact moment because you think that's the thing to do. Sometimes it's better to wait and let priority go around because somebody else might have an answer, or perhaps you're, being too hasty and you're hitting the wrong thing when, I learned a lot of that from CDH because there's lengthy combos that require lots of loops or pieces, and you have to recognize which ones you can hit, and then also the timing on when to hit them, because if you do it at the wrong, like for example, not countering a Court of Calling and then having the creature enter the battlefield and then try to counter it. Like, I've seen people do that 1,000 times, and if it's an ETB, you have to counter the spell. You can't make a decision after you see the creature kind of thing. So there's a lot of those scenarios that can come up. So yeah, just firing off just because you have it isn't necessarily always the best answer. And trying to be table police for 3 other people is probably going to bite you in the ass.
Yep.
Again, that's why I just don't like trying to focus down one player and making sure that they can't play the game. Because then, again, you have other opponents. You have 2 other opponents.
Yeah, I experienced that a bit in one of the games too, where it was like I literally was just getting attacked by everyone because I didn't have a creature out, or I only had 1 creature out, and like I wasn't blocking with it. So they knew that, and they just kept bullying me. And then again, didn't have the life gain and whatever, so I just was like whittled down until was basically out of the game. The only reason I lived is because the one guy wanted me alive, and that was it.
Well, and to add to that, because I've been playing Zada for 3 years, so I actually looked it up today. In 3 days will be my 3-year anniversary of my creation of my list. And because I've played Zada for so long, people get afraid of Zada because how explosive it can be. And there's been situations of players have been so scared of me playing Zada for so long that they will focus me down, and I have to remind them
the Gator
every
problem.
time you focus me. Every time you focus me down, you don't win the game either. So you need to chill out.
Right. Yeah, Gator expressed that too, that he has had that happen a lot, where it's just like they know him, they know he plays combo, they know that he wins a lot of games, and they go, well, we're going to kill him. And then he still wins the game, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's why I don't subscribe to like the kill the combo player propaganda.
No.
Because then you're letting the other aggro player win, you're letting other people win, and like you yourself are not winning because you're too focused on stopping someone else.
Yeah. I just looked my Sivrus deck, which I guess is my oldest Pauper deck. In July it'll be 3 years. So not too far behind you.
Yeah, I think Gut will be like 2 years for me in like a couple weeks.
Yeah, well, it says July 22nd, July 2nd, 2022, and that's roughly around the time Baldur's Gate came out. Because I literally went to Vegas that year, had ordered the box, and when I got home from Vegas, the box was waiting for me. And I built these decks probably maybe a month or 2 after, at most. So
I was just running straight Floor's list originally, just a straight list. So like I didn't start creating my list until I played Floor's list a lot. So
I guess to wrap that up, I wrote this down on the notes and I like it, so I'm going to say it out loud. Just basically, spike play in general is unsportsmanlike behavior. My rule of thumb is if you don't have a way to stop a win, or do not have a way to clearly stop yourself from dying and or losing, don't make a play. Period. There's no reason to. If you're dead on board, let it happen. I've had games where I could have stopped a win and didn't because I didn't want it to go to time, or was just tired of playing a 3-hour game and outside of the competitive, scene. But you know what I mean? Like where you could stop this, but the game's already gone on for. It's like the casual problem where people are like board wipe, and now you're in a 3-hour slog and you're just like, God, I just want this game to be over, so I'm just not gonna board wipe this time and let this guy kill me. So
no, I'm so happy that over there everyone's starting to like not like board wipes as much. I think Farewell was really the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many of them, and I do enjoy that too. That in Pauper that there isn't nearly as many, and the ones that are board wipes are just hit everything for 2, so you do have stuff that lives, and it's not a complete reset most of the time.
Well, unless it was like Crypt Rats or Pestilence, and then you just cry.
You only cry. You cry to that if you're playing Arabella and you just spent 6 turns developing this huge board and then everything dies, or if you're playing a Hera Parrot deck or something like that, and then they do the Echoing Truth and you're just like, why? But otherwise, it's not so bad.
Or you play Zada, it gets wiped, and you rebuild your board in 2 turns. Problem solved.
Yes. Well, the thing is, Zada draws a lot of cards. In some of the decks that I have, I can build a board just as fast as Zada, but then if it gets wiped, I don't have the ability to rebuild it as fast. Now, I have been able to in certain cases, but anyhow. So I think that pretty well covers spike play. And honestly, if you're one of the people that's out there encouraging people to make those types of, I'm going on my way out plays, just stop. You're not helping. And it's honestly, it's a bad look. And it's also just a thing that somebody new coming into the community comes to Sanctuary to play, and because they're trying to prep to play their first tournament, and you're out here fucking scooping or I absolutely hate scoopers. Like, do not scoop unless you are do it at sorcery speed if you're going to do it. Because, whatever. I understand if, like, your kid just ate shit and you got to go take care of your kid.
Yeah.
But that's, sometimes you can just pause the game and whatever, like, come back to it. I had it one time where, a family emergency, got a call. We had just started a game and I was like, guys, got to go. Sorry. Boop, out. And that's understandable. Real life happens. That's obviously takes precedence, but I don't like it. It's a bad look, and I'm surprised by some of the people who I have seen that have done it, and it's like, really, guys, like, this is what you want to the environment you want to create for new players to come in and get scooped on, or to have these spite plays. It's just it's awful. I don't like it. So do better.
Yeah, I just don't like the whole argument of like, oh, but you can slightly increase your win chance. Like, cool, I went from a whole bunch of 1% to that one turning to a 2. So it's not.
Yeah, impressive. Okay, so moving on. Another one. This one's a little quicker, but I know that this was one that Stein was being a stickler for in this last tournament, because I heard him say it a couple times, and I'm sure he probably did in another games as well. But I'm kind of lumping in some of the stuff we already mentioned here, but the whole keeping your hands visible, like Stein said, it's very easy to just kind of, have your hand like this. People can't see it. Your cards are here. People can't see it, but you can see it. You know what I mean? It's at an angle. And people are usually pretty generally nice about, like, oh, you're bleeding a bit, or, you're showing your cards a little bit, But if you're just keeping them on the table and within view, I know that you called one guy out for it, and he immediately was like, you could see the shadow of my hands.
So?
And? Like, what does that do? That does nothing for us. And I take it a step further, too. When I'm done with my cards, I put them on the table, and I put a die on them, so you know how many cards are in my hand. Because there's no other way to tell unless you ask me. And it's not like in person where you can just glance over and kind of get an idea. So
it helps with the flow of the game, too. So, like, people are not having to constantly stop. How many cards you got? It just helps with the flow of the game.
Nah, I still ask just out of habit.
I mean, if you're in person, you feel free to ask too, and people are going to be holding their cards up, though, and they usually have them fanned so you can see anyway. But asking just to make sure, yeah, fine, there's nothing wrong with that. But as Stein said, moving the game forward is always good. Especially in a tournament. So, like, keep in mind, we're talking about most of these examples in a tournament setting because there is a time limit. So we have to get through the game to determine a winner or a draw in 90 minutes. And 90 minutes sounds like a long time, but when you're in the thick of it, you just look and you're like, oh shit, 40 minutes went by. Like, goddamn, that was fast, So
yeah, especially
we got to keep on it.
Yeah, and playing on webcam, things take a little bit longer because you have to actually look down, look up, try to figure out what you're doing, manipulate your keyboard for...
And then shuffling, and then the rules of shuffling and having the piles and having to ask people to give you a cut and all of that. It does add to the timing, so we got to keep all that in mind.
No, I was going to say that I'm a bit of a stickler for the beginner of round procedures, actually, because I want to make sure that everyone has their full deck of either 99 or 98 cards. Everyone shuffles appropriately. Also, I'm using it because I need to block shuffle the crap out of my deck. So it's easy for me to do it. Right.
Well, and then I think other things we can do, and honestly, a little cube of these Chess X dice. What, $10? If that? Yeah. Like how much? Well, you have the same exact ones. That's cool. I threw my cube out because I have this monstrosity of a bag, but you have that too.
Monstrosity of
okay.
D20s.
Okay, it's fair enough. Fair enough.
I just have like this tiny dice bag that I don't.
Well, this thing it folds up and has drawstrings at the top, so it's like a little goblin pouch. That's what I like to think of it. It's like dice goblin pouch or whatever. But yeah, so a little thing of Chess X dice. What is that? Like $10 max?
$15.
Yeah, I mean, it's not very expensive. You already paid more than that to enter into this tournament. So just get some fucking dice and use that to notate things on your board. It can be 1/1 counters. It can be turn order. Or not turn order, but like what turn it is. It can be this, that, and the other thing. I mean, a lot of people bought another good resource. If you ever bought one of those commander things, there's these little spin downs. Great way to keep track of turn order.
I don't remember
that as well.
Mine sends scarce. Yeah, I was going to say we're all Magic players. We all bought either bought a pre-release bundle or we bought another bundle, so we all have spin down dice somewhere.
Exactly. There's ways to notate your life. Spell Table takes care of that, but there's ways we used to do it that way on like whereby and stuff back. But yeah. And then another thing you can do, I think, which I find to be very helpful for me being an editor, is I really enjoy it when other people do it as well. When you're playing, they actually calling out your phases, calling out what you're tapping and for how much, calling out the name of the card that you're casting. And like, we get cute sometimes. We have dumb nicknames for certain cards, Bob and fucking Steve and whoever, Gary, etc. And entrenched players know what that is. Other people might not. So just saying, I'm going to play Gary, and then if somebody goes, what the fuck's that? You just tell them the real name, whatever. Well, but there's just a lot of headaches you can avoid. You can avoid judge calls and all that by just being like, okay, untap, upkeep, draw. Okay, play this land for turn. I'm going to tap 3, and I'm going to play this blah, blah, blah. Easy, right? But like, there are a number of people who don't do that, and I've played with many of them. So just things to keep in mind that I think help with the game flow.
Yeah, I recently got roasted by Gator because I was playing 60-card elves.
Yeah.
So every Land War elf, Elvish Mystic, and all the mana dorks, I just went Forced Elf, and it was like, Kunx, stop saying that. Say the actual name of the card. I'm like, no, they're all Land War elves to me.
Stupid elves.
But yeah, actually, announcing phases is super important, especially in this format, considering how there's so many attack triggers, and Wizards of the Coast keeps printing attack triggers.
Well, and that's important too, is combat itself having multiple steps and phases that a lot of people don't understand. And like, declaring your attacks and then declaring your blocks. Fuck Winota. I attack with these 6 things. That's 6 Winota triggers. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I'm gonna put these 2 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then, I played a lot of Winota. It's,
crazy. That's the thing. Like because people need to understand that if there's an attack trigger, you can still deal with it during the beginning of upkeep round of priority. Beginning of combat round of priority.
The triggers go on the stack no matter what the attack trigger is. Like Arabella is a good example for our format. Arabella swings, and that's why it's important too. If you want to get rid of her, you either need to do it before her turn or during the first main phase before they go to combat, so you don't take the damage. Because if that trigger goes on the stack, you're taking that burn damage no matter what. Unless I guess you wipe the board, but even I guess that would be the only way, because then the trigger would resolve.
Or blowing up Arabella in response to giving Arabella haste, like I did in the finals.
Yeah, I suppose so. There are a lot of ways that you can kind of help speed things along, and it's just on top of that, and I guess if you go by a technical definition of the word etiquette, it really doesn't have much to do with a lot of what we're talking about. It's more just being personable, like being polite and respectful, and you treat people with dignity. But that all goes without saying. We're all here to play a game.
Bit of a conversation to say that just being a good tournament player is proper etiquette, because you're just being nice. You're following the rules of the game. You're doing everything that needs to be done. You're doing everything nice and proper.
Nobody's perfect. We all fuck up on these things all the time. We've all done it. We've all made mistakes. It is what it is. And we all learned a lot of this stuff by doing. And that's how most people learn, is by doing. So hearing this may not, really affect much. But if you keep these kinds of things in mind while you're playing, just keep in your head, like, I should be telling people what I'm doing. I should be marking these things so people understand what's going on with my board. I should not put my lands in front of my creatures, because that's just weird.
No,
it's illegal.
You can't do that. It's illegal now, so you can't do that.
I understand, but like, how many people have you played with that do that? I also don't like it when people put their artifacts up there with their creatures. Like, no, dude, put them off to the side. They're not creatures. But I digress.
Oh no, my battlefield is just like a giant mess. What I don't like is when people put like their.
You're part of the problem, Franklin.
No, I don't like it when people put like their lands off to the side.
Yeah,
I'm like, no, that's just weird.
Yeah,
I have to look at like 2 different halves of it.
They literally make playmats that kind of give you zones, so you kind of have an idea of where things should go, and then you just emulate that. You can just look at that picture for reference. But
yeah, they look super ugly.
Oh hell yeah, they are. They're ugly. They're ugly as hell. But they will teach you a thing or two. I was going to, the next thing was I wanted to ask, like, when to make a judge call, and I've never so I don't really have anything to add to that. I don't know if you guys. I know Stein said he has, but do you guys have any sort of tips or experience with doing judge calls, and like how did that work out for you? When would you do it? If something is it because something egregious happened, or in the case of this thing, the spike play, tell me more. I guess Franklin.
That actually sounds weird because I do judge calls like almost all the time. Because like if I make a mistake, I'm like, oh, sorry. I don't know how to roll this back properly, and because I made the mistake, I don't. Not that I don't trust everyone else at the table, but let's go get a judge involved to properly roll it back.
I guess it's because I haven't played like a super complex combo list that requires all of these steps to fuck up. I guess.
No, it's usually like something weird or minor. It's like, oh.
So like the only example I have is that me being in that pod with Stein and him doing that, and that ended up not even happening, and it was for something completely different besides like a ruling. I've been in pods where judges were called for a ruling, for sure. I've also had judges pop in and say, XYZ didn't happen, and you guys need to handle that right now, because that's not something you can skip.
No. Yeah, one of the judge calls I think I remember having on stream was I accidentally paid 2 mana into a command sphere and then played Night's Whisper. But that's only because that's like the first time in my life I ever played a command sphere, and I totally forgot it's 3 mana. So by the time that they called it, they're like, "Oh, sorry, we have to roll back the night. We have to re-roll back the Night's Whisper, and then untap it and pay, and you properly pay for your command sphere." I'm like, "Okay, got it."
Yeah, and that makes sense.
And then like most recently, I actually had to try to fight for a judge call because someone resolved their creature's ETB a little bit too early, so they casted a Hollow Marauder. And they drew 3 cards instead of letting everyone discard first. And yeah, it was super annoying to just say, we can't roll it back because you're playing on Moxfield, so we can't know exactly which cards are which. And we still need to get a judge involved because we need to do it properly.
Yeah, well, Hollow Marauder is another situation that's I'm kind of annoyed with how people play it, because when you cast, when the ETB resolves, you're supposed to declare what players are actually discarding cards, because it says you choose the amount of players. So I'm not going to start looking for cards until you declare it. If you never declare any players, then I'm not going to discard any cards.
Yeah, that makes sense too. And that is kind of, I guess, a thing is like being a stickler for the rules, like might not make you popular, but it's going to keep the game honest. I know that there was one point where we did have to rule something besides the one example we made earlier. There was another game where it was caught by another player where somebody played something out and then paid 1-2 less. Same thing you said, basically. They played 3 or 2 mana instead of 3 mana for a thing, and then got to a point, then passed the turn, and I was next. So then I started going, okay, untap, draw, and the guy was like, wait, hold on. How did you pay for that? And then they actually did the math and looked at it, and they were like, oh, my bad, I didn't pay the extra mana, and that. Basically, he tapped it, and then we said, okay, we're good. And he was like, we can call a judge if you want. And we were like, nah, it's cool. You did the thing. And it didn't really affect anything. Although, I will say that later on, there was a lightning bolt, and the thing that got held up was a mountain. So I have a feeling that was the reason it got held up, and it may or may not have been intentional, but hard to say, right?
It's one of those things of like, if you see something weird, just call the player out and be like, hey, how did you pay for that?
I do it all the time. I have no problem saying that. I've just never called a judge on it because I haven't gotten to one of those sticky situations where it was like, okay, XYZ 3 or 4 things happened and we don't know how to roll this back or resolve something. I haven't had to call a judge for that. I've gotten fortunate, I guess, in that regard that either we didn't catch anything like that during the game or it just hasn't happened.
Yeah, for me, it's one of the things I'm calling a judge if someone's being combative when I'm trying to clarify the situation.
Sure.
And that's kind of what happened with the spike play that we were talking about earlier. I was like, that's a spike play. If you're going to continue with this action, I'm going to call a judge. And then, I'm going to continue it. Oh, I'm calling a judge then.
And you did, and then he was trying to argue that it wasn't a spite play, and we were all. I started to cut in at that point and started to try to elaborate that, okay, you may not think that or whatever, but it is. And then he's just like, whatever, didn't want to talk anymore and just rolled it back and died, and then shut up. So
yeah, That and like if you're worried about judge calls eating into your time, it's like no, you always get a time extension.
Yeah.
Yep.
I knew that. So yeah, I don't think people should be afraid. Right. I don't think you should be afraid to call a judge for sure. I've just not done it personally because I haven't felt the need to, I guess. But again, I think I've just been fortunate, and obviously I've only played in so many tournaments, so it is what it is.
Yeah, that and like there's usually either me or someone else trying to keep track of either some sort of mistrigger in case if someone tries to roll it back, and we're like, no, I'm sorry, you kind of missed out on a beneficial trigger.
My rule of thumb, like on my stream or anytime that I've been playing, it doesn't matter what format. My rule of thumb has always been, if it's a May, sorry, you missed it. Ristic Study, it's a May. And if it goes around to the next guy's turn or 2-3 turns later and you go, oh, I missed my Ristic, sorry. But if it's an Esper Sentinel, that is not a May. And so we usually just let the person draw a card. Even though it's like, the next guy's turn. That's how we've done it personally, but I think a judge would actually just be like, probably would also say, sorry, you missed it. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Player, it's a beneficial trigger. It comes down to a table vote, but you missed your beneficial trigger.
Right.
Yep. Well, I know another situation, someone is called judge on a situation, resolving 28 kick in the doors and somebody had to go to the bathroom. Cough, cough.
Oh, yeah. So I also do that. Like, judge, like, I need a judge to, like, just watch my table and be like, hey, this is going to take a while. I have to go. Could you just watch this for a second, please? Like for in-person events, especially on my LGS for Pokemon, I do that all the time. I just ask my judge friends, like, hey, could you just watch my stuff while I go out? Like in the middle of this guy's turn, who's going to take way too long thinking about his turn.
That is one thing I do like about playing remotely, is that all my stuff's here. And yeah, if it's in the middle of somebody's turn, I always have my headphones on. I can hear. I can't talk because my microphone's over here, but I can always just go, hey, guys, I'm F6, or don't even say that. Just be like, hey, I got to use the restroom. I can hear you. I'll be right back. And just go take a leak real quick and come back. I mean, it shouldn't be that big of a deal, but the last time we were playing, it was actually, I think, round 2 or 3. I think it was round 3. I had not gotten up because round 1 ended, and then there was like a few minute break, and I used that opportunity to eat some food, I think. And then it was right back into the, I had a pizza. So I grabbed some pizza, started eating, went into the next round. That round went to draw, so it went to time, and the next round started almost immediately. So it was like I had no time to take a break. So then I was right into the next game, and we got like a few minutes into it, and I was like, guys, I've had to piss for like an hour. Like, I'm going. Like, I'll be back. And they were like, yeah, that's cool. And then they were just going to keep playing, and then the guy was like, well, I'm taking this action, and I could hear him. They're all like, well, maybe I should wait. And then they just waited for me, and I came back, and it was no big deal.
Well, it was beneficial to get the judge into that game because since I had so many triggers going off, like it was helpful for him to help keep track of what was occurring as far as my triggers go.
Sure.
I had 28 venture in the dungeons to resolve.
Yeah, like Stein, I know we spoke about this privately before, but even though I knew 100,000,000,000% I was dead, I still wanted you to play it out because it's a tournament.
Yeah, I mean, and that's I think something that's important that has to do with the etiquette and communication and everything kind of that we were talking about today is that you need to know your freaking lines, because in a tournament, nobody's going to let you just be like, so I do this and this and this and I win. Although I guess that's not true, because when I won with Mirror Retriever, everybody just kind of let me do that. But the writing was on the wall, right? So,
yeah. But there's players that are sticklers that are going to make you play it out to prove that you can actually win the game, though.
Yeah, and I
was going to say
I think
that separates the newer players, or like the newer-ish Commander players, and like the old school 60 card players. Because the older school 60 card players will be like, you used to, was it like, all right, cool, you have that combo? Show me. Don't mess up your combo. Good luck.
Yeah, true. But yeah, knowing your lines, very important, so you can do things in an expeditious manner, but then also you're not wasting people's time as far as like, if it's not deterministic, you can brick, but if it is deterministic, it is a verifiable, this is a loop and it will go until you are all dead, then just showing how to do it is fine. When I play CDH at this point, it's like somebody plays Thassa's and we're like, okay, show us a Tainted Pact. Okay, does anybody have a counter? No? Okay, you win. Scoop it up. Let's go. You get so used to these combos that you don't care about it anymore. In cases where it's like a newer combo or like a combo that maybe people haven't seen as often, I'll make my guys run through it step by step so that they can explain it out so that people on stream can kind of understand how it works.
Yeah. That's what I had to do when I was playing Jun Dargo. But then again, Jun Dargo is like a really weird, convoluted route of a combo deck where, like, yes, I have to sacrifice this, go get Razaketh, and then I have to look at the board state, figure out, remember what I have left in the deck to figure out, am I getting Burnt Offering this game, or am I getting LED this game, or am I getting Jewel Lotus this game?
Right. Yeah. And most good layered combo decks have layers, so you might have to go one of two different ways. I found out really roughly the other day that I made this new deck from Aether Drift. It had pieces that I had in hand that ended up getting discarded, this, that, the other thing. Whatever the case, it ended up where I got Hoarding Broodlord, and I already had Saw in half in hand, so I went and got something else, I think the Sacrifice or whatever. Ended up doing all the things, sawed it in half, went to go tutor again, and the next two targets are... normally the first target is get Saw in half, and then the other two targets are Sacrifice or Burnt Offering, and then Peer into the Abyss. I start looking through my deck. Guess what I didn't put in my deck?
The Peer.
Fucking no Peer. I was like, are you kidding me? After this slog of... It was literally a 2-hour game, and that's CDH. Like, it was weird. People tried to win multiple times. It was wild, and then I get to the point where I'm like, finally, there's nothing stopping me. I'm gonna win this game. Hoarding Broodlord. Blah, blah, blah. No Peer. It's like, are you kidding me, dog? I think that's when I went for the Necro, actually, because then I didn't have anything else, so I was like, I'll get the Necro and see what I can do, but I ended up losing the game because of that mistake. But anyhow, we got a couple more little things here, and then I think we can wrap it up. We're a little over an hour here, so that's about what I was shooting for. So this next thing could be kind of an entire episode, and I don't know if you guys have done it yet. I haven't done it on my podcast either. Maybe this is a preview to something that might happen later, but it's threat assessment. And I'm sure people could write a book on threat assessment itself, because it's just, there's so much nuance that goes into it, and every player sees it differently. But there are some kind of cut and dry, like, scenarios where you know who the threat is, because it's the guy who's got the combo on board is trying to win. Obviously, that's the threat. But then there's a lot of other nuances where it's like, you know, like I brought up the example about Miles not really knowing combo pieces, wouldn't see that guy as the threat, and then would start hitting somebody else, and like that would come across as poor threat assessment, right? It's like, why are you coming after me when this guy's got 2 combo pieces on the board? That's stupid. What are you doing? It turns out he's actually a pretty good player, and he actually surprised me because he killed me in that game, and I was kind of salty. I was like, bro, what are you doing? You're throwing this game away and giving it to someone else. I was so mad, and it turns out he had the silver bullet. He had a moment's peace that actually saved him and allowed him to win the game. But I didn't know he had that, so the whole time I was just like, what are you doing? Oh my god. But aneurysm aside...
Those are honestly the best plays.
Yeah, I mean, for him, I felt really good for him. Like, it was dope that he got to look like a G, like a straight boss. Yeah. Like, he looked like he knew what the fuck he was doing, and I looked like an idiot after that. But at the time, I was just like, no. But the vein in my forehead popped out, and then it went away, and I was proud of him. But, yeah, I actually used this example. So that was one of the examples, was my Glaring Freshbreaker because of the relic.
I haven't even read that far down there, and I remembered it was just like, it was another wave, like it's a vaguer spite play situation, so.
But also, that was, I think, poor threat assessment, because you already, I think you already had Zada on board, and because you had the ability the next turn to cast Zada and cast a draw spell, already had a bunch of goblins on board.
I had 5 bodies on field.
Yeah, so looking at you having all of that, and knowing that you could clearly see you had mana on board, or I just know the deck. I knew that you were in a way better position than I was at that point, and I literally had just cast my commander with no protection on the field. I mean, I could have had protection in hand, who knows, but, you know, in colorless, not so much, but, yeah, so, I mean, like, stuff like that, I think is kind of poor threat assessment.
So, this is the combo player propaganda. If I'm playing Weavers, and I play Lore Weaver, and I'm just drawing cards, I'm trying to find the win. It's a line that Gator and I have been starting to say a lot more of, if I could have won, I would have won. Right. So, don't worry about me.
It's the same with, like, Zada. Just because, like, I'm going off doesn't mean I'm going to win. Because, like, in that game, I attempted to go off on turn 4 and whiffed and drew 6 cards. It was 5 creatures and a Raking Claws. Raking Claws is nothing if I don't have any other additional buffs.
Right. Yeah. In that particular scenario, I think that the threat assessment was poor in the sense of, like, what I was doing wasn't consequential. At that point, I don't think there needed to be removal for anything. Period. Like, there wasn't anything on the
At
board
that
worth
point,
removing.
yeah.
That was just I don't like the thing you have, so I'm going to target you. And then that removal could have been spent better elsewhere. We've already talked about that example, though. Do you guys have anything else, like, from the tournament, recent tournaments, or just recent games that you've played in this sphere?
Yeah, so in like a recent game, I played just the Caddis by itself. And someone was like, I'm going to kill the Caddis because I don't know what it does. I'm like, then just leave it alone. It's not going to do anything.
Read
I'm
the
playing
card?
Malcolm Caddis. It needs Malcolm and Caddis. I'm going to smack someone for one and deal damage to everyone. That's all I'm going to be doing with this little lizard.
I mean, the only other thing you might do is, like, throw a curiosity on it, but, like, even then,
It's just one of those things of, like, everyone keeps saying, oh no, kill the combo player, but, like, who has the most interaction in the game? The combo decks.
I've also kind of been, I've said it on your guys' show, I've said it in places, in public, whatever you want to say. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think that it's kind of Magic itself was kind of designed to be, well, it wasn't designed to be multiplayer in the first place, but it was always kind of designed to be rock, paper, scissors, in a sense, where an aggro deck, is pretty good against a combo deck, because the combo deck needs time to get to its combo, and the aggro deck can sometimes, even in just 1v1, I think that's where it works the best, but I think it still works in multiplayer. But so the combo deck is trying to dig for cards, do whatever to get to its combo to win, and the aggro deck is just trying to beat that guy's face in, and that usually works in their favor. Then there's like aggro folds to control, because control is just gonna wipe your board or remove the threats over and over again, and then eventually win the battle of attrition and beat you. And then, mid-range decks are kind of in the middle of everything. They do okay against combo because they usually have interaction. They do okay against aggro because they usually have, dorks and creatures that can block. And they're kind of just well-balanced and in the mid-range. So, and then the combo beats mid-range usually. It can beat mid-range. It can beat all of them because it could just go faster a lot of the times or get to a win faster. But, like, it's a lot more shields down when it comes to combat and stuff, too. So they all kind of interplay and do well against certain things and do bad against other. Like, a couple of my decks, like Arabella doesn't like it, Sivris doesn't like it. Playing against Arena Street is just, ugh. I fucking hate playing against that. Deck. And it just takes away all of my pieces, and then I can't do anything. And if your deck is commander-centric like Arabella is, Arabella gets removed enough times, it just becomes where you can't really do it, and you gotta rely on pingers and other things. It's the same thing I had with Malcolm Kedis. People just keep removing your Malcolm. Well, now I'm on the pinger sub plan because that's all I can do, So
yeah, once someone tries just blows up my Malcolm for no reason, I'm like, why are you doing this? This is a Birds of Paradise. It's helping you out by dealing damage to everyone. But all right, sure. I don't have a pinger on board. I don't have a type changer on board. I don't have a visible way of like doing anything. Yeah. Like, you could have just saved it for when I'm trying to win and
when you transmute for your fucking, whatever piece that you need. Yeah. That's when you interact.
And then the whole table can work together to stop me, and then someone else wins right after. But if you just start blowing crap up early, no, you're messing up and you're not going to win.
I used to get pissed when I first started playing Sivris. It's the same thing. People would blow up my Sivris when I just played it the first time. I haven't done anything else. I played out maybe a dork, maybe a rock. I got to Sivris. And I'm like, cool, now I have to wait a whole ass turn cycle before I even get that card advantage. And they're just like, I don't want you to draw cards. I'm going to kill it. Like, one time I paid like 13 fucking mana for that thing. It was just like, are you kidding me, dude? Like, it was a whole game where I was just like, cast dead. And I just never had protection.
You know what? That's still playing control in a way, because you're controlling what your opponents are doing because they don't want you to play the game, and you're like, all right, I'll do whatever I want.
It's like reverse control where you're just like, here, take my stuff away. Ignore that guy. Yeah, no.
Well, so another thing is with like threat assessment is there's 4 players in the game. Just ask if you don't know. Your opponents are going to help you. Are going to communicate what they think is a better situation a lot of times.
That kind of rolls into the next topic, and we'll just lump them together here because this is going to be our final little bit. As Stein just said, with the threat assessment, if you don't know, just ask. Well, so when I first started playing, I don't know if it was the people I was playing with or or what exactly, but there were a lot of times where I went on record on your podcast saying, like, I wish table talk was banned, because I don't like it. I hate it when somebody's telling other people what my shit's doing. I hate it when you're telling what other people's shit is doing. I don't like, in a political sort of, don't look at me, look over there. It's not me, I'm not the threat. Oh, you blew up my combo piece. That's fucked up. You should have hit that guy. Like, that kind of shit I can't stand, but I do understand now more of the, because I do it in CDH, but like it just to bother me here for some reason. But I understand, like, with other pit players, maybe they don't know. Like the Miles thing has been the best example all day. Is I'm a new player, I don't really know what the combo pieces are. If you see one, let me know. And we're like, hey, this guy's got a combo piece. Don't mess with us. Get that guy. That I think is totally fair, and having it in the conversation in that way is totally fair. But the political maneuvering and metagaming and masterclass that some of these fools can do can be kind of annoying. And like Stein said, it turns into a lot of chit chat too, to where it stretches the game out because people are arguing over who's the threat and whatever.
It's also like a double-bladed sword situation too, though, because like sometimes you are getting good information, but sometimes you're also talking to like the snake in the grass that's trying to like, don't look at me.
Yeah, I recently had a game where someone's playing a commander that draws a card every time someone dies. And they're looking at me saying, "Oh, he's a combo player. You got to kill him. He's drawing a whole bunch of cards." I'm like, "Bro, you're playing this thing. Anytime anyone dies, you're drawing cards, and you're currently drawing more cards than I am."
So I will say that, like, when I got into this tournament, I felt like it finally clicked a little bit to where I understood how to kind of steer people's thoughts a little bit, and like maybe not come around and say like, "This is the thing you should be doing," but just being able to like, you know, kind of sit back and be like, you know, I'm not doing anything. I'm chilling. I'm hanging out. You know, like the game that me and Stein played, I did some damage here and there, but I was just kind of nickel and diming. And then it just got to the end. But that's because I had combo pieces in hand and I was digging for them. So I was just like, I'm not going to do shit. I'm just going to chill. I'm hanging out, whatever. Look at Stein. Look what he's doing. He's going crazy. Fuck that guy. And then it came back around to where I finally just was able to get the last combo piece, slam it all on the table and go for the win. And it was very gratifying. So I kind of felt better about it this time around, but then immediately I'm in another game where there's people who are like, "Oh, I'll make this deal with you," and I hate that because you have to watch out for this people if you're playing. There are people that are out there that will, and it's not against the rules, and I don't even know that it's like bad behavior. It's just can leave a bad taste in your mouth where people will make a deal with you, and you're like, "Oh, that's a good deal for me, cool," and then it ends up where it was like really a good deal for them and kind of screws you over in the end. Because people can make this deal seem like, you know, it's like, well, you know, you want that new car, just sign on the dotted line, and then now you're stuck for, you know, $50,000 in debt and blah, blah, blah. I mean, obviously these guys are putting you in debt. You get what I'm saying? Like, the snake oil salesman kind of thing where they just will make you feel like you're doing something right or whatever, and they kind of lead you into the bad direction. So you have to be aware of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple players that are been going around lately who's just like saying, "Oh yeah, I'll make a deal with it. I want to make a deal with you. Please don't attack me and don't kill me, and I'll offer nothing to you." And then people just look at it like, "All right, cool. I won't swing at you just so you won't counter my stuff or whatever."
Yeah.
Why do we take these weird deals? Like, there's no benefit to you. They're asking to live, even though you could just like, you know, take them off the board and don't have to deal with their stuff anyway.
Well, when people do stuff like that, I'm way more suspicious of them, kind of thing.
Yeah, the people who are saying that they don't have anything usually do. And I also think that kind of, we talked about it already, but like the incessant and unnecessary talking during other people's turns can obviously cut into our time, but also confuse players, especially if they're newer and they're trying to run through mental gymnastics of how they're going to get to their combo or how they're going to win the game. And somebody's over there either... I'm guilty of it too. Like, I like to bullshit with guys, especially if we're friendly on good terms. Like, I try not to in a tournament setting, but, you know, in a regular game, I will bullshit the whole time and not even barely pay attention to the game because I'm more hanging out for the social aspect and the game is kind of secondary. But in a tournament setting, you have to be a little more mindful of that. But then, or one thing that I think is good for communication with the table is if a certain problem presents itself, aka somebody's in a commanding spot or have a good piece to remove, or they're in the middle of a combo, telling the table that you have interaction without naming what it is or telling them exactly how it interacts can sometimes be all you need to say. You don't have to give away information for free, is what I'm saying. So like saying, oh, I have a counterspell, or naming the specific counterspell you have, sure, that can be helpful in that sense, but then the guy that's in third seat is like, well, now I don't have to use my counterspell because they know he has
I was going to say priority bullying at that point.
Yeah, and then there's also the factor of like, if you don't name it, then you can just kind of give a general idea of, I can remove that thing, or I can bounce something, or I can counter something, but like don't go into specifics. Sometimes that's good enough. But also you can, shoot yourself in the foot. So gotta be careful.
Yeah, I was actually in the last tournament too. I got attacked for lethal, and I was like, I don't know why you're attacking me if the Arabella has me pinned. All they have to do is untap, declare combat, and I die.
Right.
And then
you could use that attack in a better way.
Yeah, and another player said, oh, you could have just showed your hand and showed that you didn't have combo. I'm like, but why?
Right.
What does that do? I'm still going to die to the Arabella. There's no point in like giving away free information. That sort of communication is just like, I don't understand that type of politicking. Actually, just in general, politicking just isn't for me.
I agree.
And I think I realized I haven't played enough games with both of you. But when people try to politic with me, I just don't listen.
Yeah, I mean, there's a measure of that, and then there's also weighing what you know about the player's deck, maybe the player themselves. I mean, I hate to be the guy that says, oh, well, XYZ player does, this thing or that thing, but there are some players that I could name right now that do certain things that I don't like, and I'm not going to name them, but they exist, and that, and that they're that type of player, so going up against them, kind of like the Gator effect, but it's in a more personal way. It's kind of different from the game in the sense of like, I know that you're this kind of player, so I'm going to not trust a fucking thing that you say, or I'm not going to take your deal, or whatever. And a brand new player who's playing against a bunch of people they don't fucking know, they're not going to know that, so they're going to get ran over by that snake oil salesman or whatever. So, like I said at the beginning, there is a lot of this stuff we learned by doing, and you're going to have to learn by doing as well. But I don't know. Do you guys have any further thoughts beyond what we've talked about here?
Well, I want to talk about the quick thing about just show your hand. Like, it feels like it's just like a new trend thing, and I'm just like, it's, in my opinion, like 90% of the time people bring it up, it's a stupid time to ask for that.
Yeah, that was the other thing that bothered me, because he asked me, he's like, oh, now that you're dead, could you show us your hand? You don't have to if you don't want to. I just want to know, like, how close you were to comboing. And I'm like,
well, why?
This is still round one. We still have the rest of the tournament to play, and we're probably going to get paired up again. It's like, this is a very public deck, but I don't want you to know what I'm playing or if I made any adjustments, because this is still a tournament. But I was like, no, this knowledge check is like a skill check for players,
right?
Playing in a tournament, like, you should know how to do stuff. You should know like when your triggers are happening. You should know some of these
Magic basics for sure. You should have a firm grasp on Magic basics before playing in a tournament. And that actually speaks to etiquette and sportsmanship, because you don't go on a fucking football field and don't know what a touchdown is, like that's just silly.
Like, it's okay if you're 5 or like if you're a small child learning.
Children, that's completely different, and that's a whole different story.
But if you're playing in a tournament and it's okay to just say, hey, I don't know how stuff works. This is my first time. I'm like, all right, cool. But if you're like an entrenched player and you still don't know how certain combos or certain things work, and you're going into a tournament and you kind of still don't know, that's unfortunately on you.
It is, and I feel like the resources are out there to learn. We've named some of them already. Watching gameplay videos, watching content, watching the VODs of the tournaments themselves, just to get a feel for like what it is. That is one thing that it differs between tournaments, but like, so for example, on the Sanctuary side of things, when they do the tournaments, you can't hear the table, and it's just commentary over the top, which can be, I think, engaging and more fun, so to speak, for the viewers, because then you get that play-by-play and the commentary, color commentary guy, and they banter back and forth, and you get to still watch the game, but then they're telling you about, oh, well, he could have this, or he could have that, and that also gives a lot of insight into, like, how the decks work and how the players play, or like, oh, well, if I know that guy, he's definitely bullshitting, or whatever, like, and then on the flip side, like on the Common Cause ones, our archetypal audio was there, so then you can actually hear what the players are saying. A lot of the examples that we made today are there for you to watch, and I think between the two of them, you can get a very firm grasp of what's going on in the format, the meta, etc. And I mean, the format's small enough. There aren't a lot of tournaments out there. There's more now than there was when I first started, but it's growing and all that. And that's why people like me and Kunx and everybody else that are involved in content creation have been trying to, put a spotlight on it and to help it grow. But like Kunx said, it is kind of on you to do the research before you dive head first.
Yeah, I was going to say the other way to do is like there's a whole bunch of games that are always public on like Sanctuary or Common Theory, or sometimes whenever a game randomly spawns up in home base, you can go watch them. That's one of the best things about this community. You could just go into a Discord server and watch a public game, just ask someone to stream. People are happy to be watched.
Well, to add to that also is most deck lists are public information, so you just look at the deck list, and a lot of deck creators are open to questions, so you just ask them.
I literally had that happen with recently. It was Sivirus Cloakwood, because at one point I was running that sticker package, and I left that in the primer because it was like, I put a note, like, I left this here, like, I don't no longer run this, but I left this here for reference in case anybody wants to try it, and literally had a guy comment on the thing. Then he went as far as to join my Discord and actually ask me directly what I would suggest to flip-flop around to put that sticker package back in. And I didn't have a very good answer. I was just like, well, look at my history. There's things that I tried. You could try newer things. I would probably say, remove this, that, and the other thing. But I wasn't going to sit there and actually, like, redo the whole thing. But at the same time, it was kind of cool. Like, dude just out of nowhere is like, I love your deck. I want to play it, but I don't know what to do about this thing. And, I helped as much as I could. I don't know if that's how, if they ended up actually doing anything with it, but... and then, just the other day, I built this deck that I played in this last tournament and was having people tag me and stuff about spoilers. Oh, these things and that things, giving me compliments about the deck and yada yada. My Arabella list got compliments when I played it in Vegas. And if you're curious, find our deck lists, follow us on Moxfield, then you'll always get new updates, new decks and stuff. And a lot of us have written primers for the decks that we play the most, so... There's a lot of information there to be had. You just have to take it upon yourself to do the research. There's the Commander Spellbook that can help you find combos. There is the tier list videos you guys have done that can kind of point people in the direction of what some of the meta decks are. And, of course, a lot of it is opinion and conjecture, but it still stands that a lot of those decks have won tournaments, so.
Yeah, because for those videos, we do have the link to the Moxfield bookmark that has all 36 decks that are on the tier list listed.
Yeah, so I mean, that's there. The PDH Homebase website has a lot of information, links to other stuff. The CPDH.guide, more stuff there. They have not a tier list, but a deck list library or whatever. I don't remember what he calls it, but my Sivirus Cloakwood is on there. And it's just like an example of this type of deck, this archetype, whatever. And, other people's decks are on there as well. And most of them, I would assume, have primers because, they got selected for this thing in the first place.
And if there's not a version of the deck that has a primer, there probably is one that has a well-written primer on it.
Yeah. And again, any of our Discords are open to join. My Discord, you can find that link is always in the description of all my videos. I will make sure to shoot the commentary stuff into this show notes as well. But pop in on our Discords. I have a couple channels about, deck brewing, and I know the commentary does as well. Every single one of our Discords and all the Discords that exist that I know of that have to do with this sphere, they all have, deck discussion places and things like that. Share your deck list and then have other people comment on it. And then, people ask you questions. You can ask questions, blah, blah, blah. So the information is out there. You just got to find it.
Yeah, something we do on Common Theory, like every weekday morning, is Gator and I are usually on there having just a conversation. Other people come in and we start brewing decks, especially Lotad. Lotad loves brewing, and he always makes some weird, super fucked up Voltron deck at the end of the day.
This last game that I played with him last night was not a Voltron deck. It was a Go Wide deck. It was like Azorius Flyers, and it was like, what is this? And then it kicked the shit out of us. We were just like, what the fuck? Like, and I was getting ignored. I was doing my little pingy damage because I had made some changes to the Fleshraker, and I wasn't really being touched. And then we were all like sub 15, and then all of a sudden he was just like, okay, now I just kill all of you. And we were like, God damn, okay. I see you, Lotad. we see you.
Well, the thing is also like, even if you can't get in contact with the deck author, there's people in the community that will just help you because they just know the decks and they want the community to grow. So
we talk about there really is no ownership over any of this stuff, but I'd say, oh, my deck or this deck or that deck, and like I have a couple decks I'm known for, and I call them my deck. But yeah, I mean, there's other people that play them. All of those players know how to play the deck well enough that they could answer those same kind of questions. So you don't necessarily have to talk to the primer author or whatever, but that may be your best place because they at least have written it down at some point, so they have something to reference if they need to answer your questions. But I digress. I think that about wraps it up. We're at about 90 minutes, so I think that was a good introduction to this new series that I'm doing. I have no idea what else is coming. I don't know what else I'm going to want to talk about. This is going to be kind of my catch-all place for Pauper stuff so that I can just talk about it, because I like talking, if you haven't figured that out yet. Franklin, thank you so much for joining me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, anytime.
I will probably bring on more commentary guys and or other people from the community as I see fit, because I don't like talking by myself. I've done like a solo podcast in the past. Not fun. Talking to yourself or reading a script is just not it.
Yeah, it's not. It's not natural for us.
Yeah.
It's nice to have someone to bounce ideas off, kind of thing.
I agree. And then once again, Stein, thank you for joining. Congrats on your win. Hopefully, it's not the first, or not the last, I mean. And it was the first. Hopefully not the last. I'll get there eventually. I got 2 a.m. work brain, so...
Still super happy for you. Like, your win made me so happy over the weekend. I'm still elated for you.
It was so surreal for me, especially since like I was not planning on playing in the tournament, and it's like, we need a 20th player. I was like, sure, I'll play,
and then won it all. What a lucky guy. Yeah. I don't think it's luck, actually. I know you've put in the time, you've put in the effort, and now you're finally reaping the rewards. I was trying to do that with some of my decks too. I haven't gotten there yet, but one day. That's why it's called a grind, right? So Eventually you get there. Unless you're greater, then you're the winner until somebody says otherwise, basically.
Well, Zada is the Hedron grinder, so he's got to. I got to grind those games.
All right, guys. Again, thank you so much for watching. For those of you, thank you so much for joining me. For those of you who are watching, stay tuned. There's going to be more stuff I'm going to talk about Pauper. Obviously, I also have the NoFX podcast, which covers CEDH proper. We have a review for Aether Drift coming up very soon. The spoiler season just finished, I think, yesterday. So I'm trying to hopefully coordinate with my co-host to possibly do that set review tomorrow. So it'll be out sometime this week. This should be out sometime. Well, you're seeing it already, but it'll be out soon. And yeah, going forward, obviously gameplay videos, mostly do CEDH, but we do see PDH too. If this is your first time here, consider throwing down a subscription if you want to see more. Likes are great. Comment as well if you think we fucked up on anything that we talked about here, or you have more you'd like to add. Great.
Yeah, and if you really want to help, go watch another video. Go watch all of the gameplay videos. They're amazing.
Comment on the video too helps.
Yes. Everything for the algorithm. Also, I do have a Patreon. I don't make a lot of money off of this, but making a little bit just to increase visibility and or production values is all I'm really looking for. I'm not trying to make a living. I know that's not going to happen. But, I do take a lot of time out of my day, or weeks or months. Or in this case, I'm going on like 4 years now. So it's been a minute of doing all the work and getting a little bit, at least enough to buy a pizza or something. That's all I ask for. So if you're interested in more, I have a lot of benefits too. There's merch. I have playmats. I have t-shirts. There's all kinds of stuff. Links are down below. Check that stuff out if you're interested. Also, check out Common Theory. I'm the editor there. So another thing on my plate, unfortunately, but also fortunately, because they actually pay me. So that's actually pretty cool. Yep. But yeah, I'm also a guest there sometimes. I play on game streams all over the place. There's a playlist at the bottom of my guest spots, so you can see other channels where I've played and done stuff and whatever. So with that said, thanks again, guys. We'll see y'all later. Have a good rest of your day, evening, year, week, month, eternity. See ya.